Wolfgang Franz, who heads Merkel's Council of Economic Advisers. Mr. Franz, thank you very much indeed for your time. So then let me start by asking you whether or not you think the agreement that we had from the EU summit on Friday has done anything to stabilize the euro.
Well, basically the principle is right, but the details are missing. And let me say a few sentences to justify that. In order to overcome the euro crisis, we have to deal with at least two aspects. Short-term, solving the current systemic crisis, and the medium term is to establish a well-functioning framework in order to make sure that such a crisis will not happen again. And the summit last Friday was concerned with the second aspect, namely to considerably improve the institutional framework of the Eurozone. And in this respect, a significant step has been made in the right direction, such as introducing automatic sanctions and national constitutional balanced budget rules.
Mr. Franz, it seems as though we'll get to the first point that you make in a moment, but even on that second point that you make about there being perhaps some progress in the medium term when it comes to establishing some sort of closer structural framework, it seems that there is a great deal of economic, not to mention legal uncertainty about exactly how this is going to take place, as to whether there will be a brand new structure that will run parallel to the EU, about how it will work in terms of institutions.
Well, there is some considerable doubt whether or not the details will do the right jobs, but I'm convinced that the specialists on this area will work out details which will convince financial markets and that financial markets get at least less nervous. But anyway, the policies of these countries, of the problematic countries, those countries being under attack by financial markets such as Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, they must credibly commit themselves to fiscal discipline over the next decades in order to reduce existing debt ratio to comfortable levels. And I see a realistic chance that they will do so. And then together with the enlarged European Financial Stability Facility, the EFSF, financial markets will get the reassurance they need, and interest spreads will move downwards. And
yes.
Perhaps on a more positive note, both Mr. Papademos in Greece and Mr. Monti in Italy are professors of economics, so things must go well.
So Mr. Franz, I can see that you are very much encouraged by that, and you mentioned the instability that we've seen in financial markets. I mean, if we look at the reaction just this morning, it doesn't seem to be very encouraging, does it? With many market participants saying that essentially this deal fell short in terms of it not being legally binding in any way, the fact that it's more of a loose agreement, intergovernmental agreement, I should say, as opposed to a fully fledged change to the EU treaty. So I'm just wondering that if we don't see, what happens if this accord isn't enough to reassure markets just in the next few months? What then?
Well, that reassurance will not come overnight, because the details have to be worked out, and there's always the danger that the one or the other country will object to some restrictive details with respect to debt breaks and the like. And on the other hand, financial markets are still waiting whether Italy and Greece will indeed forcefully and credibly undertake measures to, in the future, reduce their public debt ratio and to undertake measures to improve the international competitiveness of their countries.
Well, Mr. Franz, we have in the studio with us right now George Magnus, Senior Economic Advisor at UBS Investment Bank. And so, George, let me just put some of those points to you then. This approach, the German approach, that essentially austerity and budgetary discipline is a sort of a cure for the debt crisis. What are your thoughts on that?
Nobody would say that Mr. Franz is wrong in articulating the view that sovereign debtors have to, particularly with difficult financing burdens, have to take measures to reduce their deficits and their indebtedness. We all know that's true, and has to be. It's as true for for European countries as it is for the US and the UK and so on. The problem is that to me, it's a single-minded, anti-Keynesian approach, which is doomed to fail, because you have to have in any grouping of countries, like particularly the EU or the Eurozone, you have creditors and debtors, and they both depend on each other. And if all you do is kind of crush GDP in the process of reducing your debt, then the debtors will take the creditors down with them. This is a script from the 1930s, which is in danger of being repeated, I fear.
Let's just get the response then from Mr. Franz to those comments. Mr. Franz, Berlin has always been very conscious of the risks from moral hazard. Are they going to have to make some concessions on this? Because ultimately this emphasis on austerity could, as Mr. Magnus says, crush the very objective of boosting growth and restoring competitiveness that you describe.
No, I don't think so, because in the very short run it might, of course, happen that we have some problems with macroeconomic fluctuations, even perhaps a mild recession in these countries. But in the medium run, as many empirical studies shows with respect to growth, a reduction of the public debt ratio will cause the countries to be better off. And think of studies like Rowoff and Reinhardt and the like. So, of course, in the very short run, there is a danger of a mild recession in these countries, but in the medium term, they will be better off.